Good evening. Going to call to order the regular Planning Commission meeting of September 18th. I will ask for a roll call, please.
Commissioner Barnett,
When did I get to be first?
because you're alphabetical order.
Here.
Commissioner Latimer,
Here.
Commissioner Nugent,
Here.
Commissioner O'Gorman Jenkins,
Here.
Commissioner O'Neill,
Here.
Commissioner Willers,
Here.
Vice Chair WIRICK,
Here.
Youth Member Pedersen.
Here.
Thank you. I would like to point out that Chair DAMBACH is absent from this evening's meeting.
We're heavily weighted towards the lower end of the alphabet.
Oh, come on, there's two of us.
Proudly so. Okay, do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So
moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
So I heard Commissioner Nugent make the motion and Commissioner Latimer second the motion. Can we get a roll call for that, please?
Yes. Commissioner Barnett,
Aye.
Commissioner Latimer,
Yes.
Commissioner Nugent,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Gorman Jenkins,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Neill,
Yes.
Commissioner Willers,
Yes.
Chair WIRICK,
Aye.
Vice Chair WIRICK, sorry, and Youth Member Pedersen.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, it's time for the Pledge of Allegiance. Miss Cornwall, can you please lead us in the pledge? Okay, at this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on tonight's agenda. It's recommended that members of the public keep their comments to 3 minutes or less. For items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to make comments at the time the item comes up for commission consideration. Upon being acknowledged by the chair, please step up to the podium, speak into the microphone, and begin by stating and spelling your name. Are there any members of the public? Yeah, step forward. Thank you.
Is this on? Yes. Okay, good evening. My name is Janet Boyle, and I'm a resident of Sonoma. I speak tonight on behalf of more than 825 petition signers. To put that into perspective, the last city council members who were up for election received less than 4,100 votes each. That was last December. That means that the 825 petition signers, if they vote, would be 20% of the vote count. The petitioners are your constituents, and they are deeply concerned. Our central question remains unanswered for 30 days. Actually, 230 was yesterday, 231. Why is the city proposing to change the land use designation for all 22 acres of the Sebastiani property? Equally troubling, this issue, which is a 20 to 30 year decision, the general plan, has never been on the agenda for the Planning Commission or the City Council since January. It is September. It's never on the agenda. So for over 9 months, residents have had no formal opportunity for a dialogue with this body or the City Council. Without it on the agenda, council members and this body cannot respond, and the community is left. I'm at the podium every month, is left in a one-sided monologue. On September 15th, boy, I got to really work on this. On September 15th, Ms. Gates, thank you, Jennifer, confirmed that the 2023 housing element already meets Sonoma's state-mandated housing needs through 2031. In other words, the Sebastiani property is not required to meet our housing needs. Even the owner, Foley Family Wines, has not requested this change, and that was confirmed by the developer, JJ, when we met with him as recently as August 24th of this year. Yet the city is advancing a sweeping land use shift that could add more than 500 housing units, bringing traffic and infrastructure strain with no mandate to do so. For perspective, Sonoma has fewer than 6,000 housing units, so adding 500 more would be a 9% increase. That's a dramatic change for a town of our size. This risk does not stop here. Under California law, SB 71, once the land use is designated for dense housing, a developer could invoke a transit-oriented development project rules that exceed even the city's stated maximum. And especially, I just recently found out there's a railroad easement very near that property. So it could be deemed a transit-oriented development, and it would be out of your hands. The state of California could approve it and say you could put 100 houses per acre there. This site could qualify, leaving the council powerless to stop even a larger project. Meanwhile, statewide data shows no justification for rushing. The governor's 2025 to 2026 budget summary, which is online, reports 3 straight years of population decline in California, with growth slowing for more than a decade. So why speculate on housing demand that may never come? So again, I asked the same question raised 231 days ago at the Vintage House. Who is asking for this change? It is not the residents, it is not the voters, and it's not the property owner. Ms. Gates also reminded us that the City Council, potentially guided by you, the Planning Commission, has the authority to adjust land use definitions before adoption. On behalf of hundreds of engaged residents, I urge you, do not change the land use for all 22 acres. Preserve the 2 agricultural parcels, and if any change is necessary, limit it to low-density residential, which is consistent with the surrounding neighborhoods. Please stand with your community and your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public wishing to address the commission tonight on items not listed on tonight's agenda? No. Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to the public hearing component of tonight's agenda. And we will start with item 4.1, which is consideration, discussion, and possible action to adopt some two-prong entitlements. The first prong being a resolution certifying the final EIR, adopting the mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and making the required findings with a statement of overriding considerations. The second prong being a resolution approving design review, density bonus, demolition permit, and parcel merger. The staff report, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair and Commissioners. Good evening. So the project before you tonight is the Montaldo Apartments project. Before getting into the project details, I'd like to provide a clear overview of the entitlements and approvals that the Planning Commission is being asked to consider this evening. The triggers for these approvals and entitlements will become clearer as we move through the presentation, and I'll also be able to clarify any questions that you may have. So the first portion, as Vice Chair Wyrick referred to as the two-prong, would be the certification of the final EIR, adoption of the mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and the findings, including a statement of overriding considerations. The entitlements for design review would be design review, density bonus with the concessions and waivers requested, a demolition permit, and a parcel merger. Additionally, I want to provide you with a synopsis of the project timeline and how we've gotten the project before you this evening. It's been going on for a few years now. So in July 2021, the city received an SB 330 preliminary application for a housing development, and that's in accordance with the Housing Crisis Act of 2019. In September of 2021, a study session was held in which the Planning Commission provided feedback, and subsequently in June 2022, the applicant submitted a revised application. Additionally, in July of 2022, the prelim application for the housing development, the SB 330 application, was locked in because, I'm sorry, let me revise that. So once the SB 330 application was deemed complete, the fees, development fees, were vested essentially in the code at that time. So you may have noticed when you were going through the staff report that some of the development code standards didn't match what's currently in the code. In August of 2022, design review application was also deemed complete, and the CEQA process was determined to be necessary. So that subsequently triggered the May 2023 consultant contract for CEQA purposes, which was approved and ratified. In July 2024, a notice of preparation for the draft EIR was prepared. In May 2025, the notice of availability became sent out for the availability of the draft EIR and initial study. And in August of 2025, the final EIR was published. So the Montalto Apartments project site is located on the east side of Highway 12 in the northwest area of Sonoma at 19320 Sonoma Highway. South and east of the project site are multifamily residential and single-family residential homes, and to the north and west are commercial developments including the Old Bowl Center and Spark Cannabis Dispensary. And the two parcels together combined would be about 2.15 acres. It's got a general plan designation of housing opportunity. It is within the West Napa Sonoma Corridor planning area and is zoned residential housing opportunity. As I mentioned, the site consists of 2 parcels, which would be merged after Planning Commission approval to provide a total site area of 2.15 acres. The front parcel contains an existing home that was determined eligible for listing on the California Register of Historic Resources. Discussed heavily throughout the staff report, the historical resource evaluation, and subsequent EIR. A large valley oak sits just near the site's southwest corner, and the rear parcel is undeveloped. The condition of the home is in a state of disrepair. Pre-demolition and structural assessments reported lead and asbestos in the home, and the structural assessment had a number of issues that created the concern for risk to life and safety due to a number of issues, significant structural concerns, rot and decay, foundation failure that had occurred in a previous seismic event, which is pictured down there on the bottom right. So the project proposes to develop 50 residential units, which would be rentals, achieved by the construction of 7 buildings on approximately 2.15 acres. 25% of the units would be affordable, and that would be 8 low income, 3 very low income, and 2 extremely low income units. They would also provide, I believe it's a total of 89 parking spaces, primarily provided through 48 parking garages, a mix of single and double garage stalls. Approximately 2,400 square feet of open space would be provided for the residents, in addition to private space that's provided through small patios or balconies. So here we've got the number of buildings. Building 1, which is the front there, so on the left, parallel or adjacent to that would be Sonoma Highway, and that would be a 5-plex, so that's one of the 2-story buildings. So 2 2-story buildings and 5 3-story buildings. The 2-story buildings, again, are in B1, which is what you would see along the frontage from the public right-of-way, and B7, which is the rear building, which abuts the single-family lower density zoning. And the interior buildings are the 3-story 8-plex buildings. So here is a front elevation of a 5-plex. There are 4 plan types that are provided, and they range from 977 square feet to just over 1,300 square feet. All of them are either 2-bedroom and 2-bath or 2-bedroom and 2.5-bath, and all the garages in the 5-plexes are 283 square foot garages are provided. Additionally, it ranges from 118 to 230 square feet porch or patios that are provided in addition to their common space. And here's just some additional elevations. So the left elevation, let's see, that would be facing north. And here is the elevation for the 8-plex. These are the 3-story units, are at 36 feet. And there are 4 different plan sets within the 8-plexes. They're all 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and they range from 750 square feet to around 920 square feet. And the range of square footage for the garages are, they're actually either 262 square feet or 467 square feet, depending on whether they're a single car or double car. And they have 46 square foot porches plus the common space that's provided. So just a quick materials and colors board. It would be in a modern Spanish style architecture reminiscent of the existing structure that's on the front parcel. Composite shingle roofing, stucco siding, front doors in an accent of sage green. brass finishing with the garages and utility fixtures, bronze finish lighting fixtures at unit entrances, and the same building materials would be used throughout all of the buildings. As previously mentioned, there's approximately 24,000 square feet of common open space areas throughout the project site. And this includes a multi-purpose turf area, which is the large circular green area you see towards the bottom. It includes 2 gathering areas with seating, one specifically for a children's play zone. It includes child-scaled seating and a chalk area, shade trees, and there's also an additional shade tree with a seating wall closer to the front of the project site. These are some of the proposed plant types. The final landscape plan will require a tree replacement plan with it that will have to meet the requirements that are outlined in the Municipal Code Chapter 12.08. So that will be submitted at the time of building, and that will, it's compliant with WILO now, but there typically are changes that occur, and it of course will be required to be compliant with WILO at that time as well. So moving on to the consistency with the general plan and general development code consistency. So listed here, about a quarter of the general plan policies that the project would support, of which were listed in the staff report. These include encouraging a diversity of residential type, density, size, and affordability, providing incentives and concessions to offset costs of affordable housing development, coordinating development on small contiguous lots to the extent possible, requiring pedestrian and bicycle access and amenities in all development, promoting higher density, incorporating bicycle facilities, requiring new development to provide adequate private and, where appropriate, public open space. As detailed in the standards compliance table that was in the staff report, most all of the development standards were met aside from where one concession and one waiver were requested. The waiver was for a 2.5-foot reduction from 5 feet to 2.5 feet for the trash enclosure along the northerly property line, and that abuts to a commercial property, and it's just a small portion of the enclosure. So again, that's not even the trash itself, it's just the enclosure for the bins. And the concession would just be a 0.01 deviation from the floor area ratio of 0.70. So that standard they're asking to go from 0.70 to 0.71. Okay, so the development and the related amenities would require the demolition of the existing home, and as I mentioned, it was determined eligible for listing on the CRHR. And the proposed demolition of the eligible resource triggered the need for an initial study pursuant to CEQA, which determined its demolition would result in a significant impact, and therefore the EIR was required. And that would analyze a full range of potential impacts to identify mitigation measures to reduce those impacts. So all resources categories that were evaluated in the EIR were either less than significant impacts or less than significant with mitigation measures incorporated, aside from impacts on historical resources due to the demolition. Oops. So it's worth mentioning that the EIR requires a reasonable range of alternatives to be provided, including a no project alternative, and that really aims to provide the project alternatives that would accomplish the same goals while reducing the level of significance of the impacts that are incurred by the project. And for this EIR, the environmentally superior alternative, aside from the no project alternative, was determined to be the on-site relocation alternative. However, as supported by the final EIR, the structural assessment, and the lead and asbestos report, and the letter provided by DeNova explaining the estimated cost for relocation and rehabilitation, the on-site relocation alternative would result in not meeting all the project objectives and would be financially infeasible. So there up on the board, I sort of just did a little mapping of how we're getting to the statement of overriding considerations. And also, you'll see that I have the MMRP listed under the EIR, and that's just letting you know that although a statement of overriding considerations would be required to be adopted, that the MMRP, the mitigation plan, would still be implemented to its full capacity. So given the possibility that the Planning Commission may not be too familiar with the statement of overriding considerations, I just wanted to give a brief explanation, which of course is detailed with supporting information in the staff report and EIR. If a public agency approves a project that will result in a significant environmental effect that cannot be avoided or substantially reduced, it has to adopt a statement of overriding considerations. As summarized in the staff report and detailed within Exhibit A of Resolution 1, the Planning Commission, by way of adopting the Statement of Overriding Consideration, concludes that the city's judgment, that the benefits of the project outweigh the significant and unavoidable effect that would be caused by the project. So staff is recommending adopting both resolutions, which would certify the EIR, adopt the MMRP, and approve the findings of facts in the Statement of Overriding Considerations, as well as approve all these design review and entitlements as the density bonus, demolition, and the parcel merger. This would also, the density bonus would include the concession and waiver adoption. Sorry, that was a lot to digest, so I'm here for questions or clarification. And we also have Rima here with Certor. That was the consulting firm that was selected to conduct the EIR. And we also have Carrie Watt and Dana Suboto with DeNova, the applicant.
Great, thank you very much. Would the applicant like to come forward and offer any comments you may have?
Yeah, we actually have Carrie prepared a presentation, so I'll pull that up for her now.
Wonderful, thank you.
Vice Chair WIRICK,
Yes.
can we please do ex parte?
We certainly can. At this time, I would like to request of the commission, if anyone has had any ex parte communication with the applicant, to state it on the record, please, on the details surrounding. Seeing none, we can proceed with the applicant's presentation. Thank you.
No worries. Go. Great, thank you. Good evening, Vice Chair WIRICK and Commissioners. Youth Commissioner, great. My name is Carrie Watt. I'm the Director of Entitlements for DeNova Homes. Thanks very much to both Jennifer and Diane for all of their efforts over the past years shepherding this project through. It's been quite the process. Diane did a great job of providing a history. And I'll briefly go through just a few of the changes that we made. In September of 2021, 4 years ago, we came before the Planning Commission in a work session, which was open to the public. And we came with a proposal for 55 units. And what the Commission suggested then is that we have two two-story buildings, one facing Sonoma Highway, one towards the eastern end of the property adjacent to the single-family residential. So we incorporated that into the project. And also, the Commission recommended then, when given the opportunity, that they would really prefer to have the oak tree out front preserved in favor of retaining the old house. And they gave us support for a Spanish-style design, which we've incorporated into our community. We submitted our full application in June. We were deemed complete in August of 2022. And then after several staff reviews, staff determined that the property actually was designated as a housing opportunity site and that the house might be historic, and therefore we went through the EIR process. In February of 2024, staff asked us to do a revised plan which would preserve the house on its own 10,000 square foot parcel, and one of those, that became one of the EIR alternatives. But at the time, we took a look at that. We realized that doing that resulted in absolutely no common open space, which we felt would not really serve the new residents. And so we reverted back to the original plan. In August 2024, the city held an EIR scoping session, which was also open to the public. We did a final update to the plans in January, and then in May, the city released the draft EIR for public review. Real quickly, but Diane did a great job of indicating this. This is an SB 330 application, so it's what's called a preliminary housing application. It is a state law to encourage housing development, and that cities really cannot deny one of these new home developments as long as it meets all of the city's objective standards. And in August of last year, the city determined that we met the objective standards. We are requesting a density bonus because we are providing 13 affordable homes, below market rate homes at the extremely low, very low, and low income range. And state law allows us to go ahead and request concessions and waivers for that. There we go. Great. So again, we have extremely low 2 units, very low 3 units, and low income 8 units. It's really about 26% of the total 55. This gives us a density bonus of 32.5%, which we do not need to use because of the zoning. But it does also, by state law, give us 2 concessions and unlimited waivers from the city's municipal codes. We're actually asking only for the 1 concession on FAR and the 1 waiver on the trash enclosure. Otherwise, all other development standards are met. Wow. There we go. Development plan. I like to color mine because I'm color oriented. So the 2 buildings in purple are the 2 two-story buildings. As you can see, those are 5 plexes. The blue buildings are the 3-story buildings. Those are 8 plexes. You can see the tree out front that's being preserved, and also we're preserving trees along the boundary between buildings 1 and 4. The large green area is, in fact, that central common area. We have a couple focal point areas as well. The 2 trash enclosures, one which needs the waiver towards the northern property line, another trash enclosure towards the rear. Access is from the northern side, and that's what requires removal of the home in order to preserve the tree. The access does meet all fire department requirements, and the fire trucks can come in there, do a hammerhead turn at the end, and then exit. The fire department has reviewed everything here. I do want to kind of point out quickly about the parking. We actually have 68 garage parking spaces, not 48. So we do meet code there. The 5-plex buildings have 4 garages each, and the 8-plex buildings have 12 garages each, some one car and some 2 car. Wake up, there we go. Just to let you know, the affordable homes are dispersed throughout the entire community, so there are affordable units in every building. As far as utilities, this was a little bit of a challenging site. Essentially, the site tends to slope more towards the east, so we do have to elevate the site. And so we have some retaining walls around the northern, eastern, and southern property line in order to tilt the site up a little so we can get gravity flow for the sewer into the sewer in Sonoma Highway. Storm drain actually goes to the northeast corner, and it connects to an existing public storm drain on the adjacent property. We have an easement for that. Water, of course, connects to the water in Sonoma Highway. In the landscape plan, again, we have that central common area. We have some focal points. We have seat walls around trees. The mailboxes are located at that focal point between buildings 1 and 4. And there are walkways throughout the entire community. So as folks come in off the sidewalk on Sonoma, we are putting a sidewalk in Sonoma. You have a public or sidewalk access to every single front door and every single building to all the common areas. That is a requirement of the code. Diane mentioned that there is significant tree removal, which we acknowledge, although we are preserving some trees on site. And I do want to point out that the trees that we are preserving on site, the big oak at the front, and then those trees near Building 4, they're actually located off site, but the canopies hang over. Sidewalks in those areas are going to be permeable, so it's not a full concrete, it's a permeable paver, and there's only going to be bark mulch under those trees. In addition, the trees by Building 4, we are building a little 4-foot wire mesh fence around them to make sure that folks don't have access and do things that they probably should not.
Can I ask you what that little area in, I guess, what is the northeast corner of the property? It's in a lighter shade of green,
Bioretention.
and that's a bioretention area?
Correct. So
Okay.
we're doing the storm drain towards that corner. That's where the bioretention is. And then the storm drain goes off-site from there. Good question. We are removing quite a few trees, but we also have quite a few trees that we are planting. So 102 trees, 90 of those are 24-inch box. There we go. And again, just emphasizing that within that oak drip line, mulch, no irrigation, permeable pavers in those two areas. The eightplex, a 3-story building up to 36 feet in height. These are buildings 2, 3, 4, and 6, 40 units total. You can see the little diagram at the bottom where those three-story buildings are located. Okay. So on the ground level, we have 1- and 2-car garages. Every unit has a bicycle parking space in the garage, which is kind of nice. The blue areas show where there are shared entries and stairways up to the 2nd and 3rd levels. On the 2nd level, it's all Plan 1. On the 3rd level, it's all Plan 2. The light green areas show you where the private patios are, or private decks are for each one of those units. So every unit does have a private balcony. The 2-story buildings up to 30 feet height total. This is Building 1 facing Sonoma, Building 7 to the far east. There we go. On the 1st level, we have 4 individual garages, the Plan 4, and then the lower levels of the Plan 5. The Plan 5 is more like a townhome style, so it has a 1st level and then stairs up to the 2nd level. On the 2nd level, we have the 2 Plan 3s. They share a stairway and front porches, and then we have the 2nd level of the Plan 5. Again, all of these have bicycle parking spaces in garages. The thing that makes this a little bit different from the 8-plex buildings, only one Plan 5 has direct access to its 1-car garage, and the Plan 4 has direct access from its garage. The other folks have the carports to use and also surface parking. So just in summary, per staff's analysis, this new community is consistent with all the city's general plan policies and meets the city's applicable standards. We are providing 13 below market rate apartments in the extremely low, very low, and low income ranges, which is a much needed range in the housing market, any housing market in any city. It requires only 1 concession and 1 waiver as a density bonus, providing all of this affordable housing. And we believe it provides right-size housing for smaller families with a child-friendly common area. And we concur with all the findings of the final ER, the statement of the overriding considerations, and MMRP, and the conditions of approval. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate your presentation.
Vice Chair, if I may just make 2 points of clarification, just to not create any confusion. I think Carrie was referring to the previous plan, which had 55 units, but it is actually 50 units. And then the 46 garage stalls maintain the 68 garage parking
Correct.
spaces. Yeah, okay. I just didn't want anyone to get confused.
Understood. Thanks for that clarification. So at this point, I would open it up to questions of city staff or of the applicant from the commission. Any questions of staff or the developer? Okay, I have a couple. Can you just give a really brief overview of SB 330 and how it relates to this project, and maybe add into that the waiver and concession aspect of it and how that impacts the commission's jurisdiction or authority in this?
Sure, I'll try my best. And we also have David Ruderman here, city attorney. So the SB 330 application, it's essentially if you are meeting the inclusionary housing requirement, you qualify for the density bonus. With the density bonus, you are entitled to unlimited waivers and then a number of concessions based on how many affordable housing units and what type you provide. You don't have to use your density bonus in the application in order to be able to use your waivers and concessions. So for instance, with this project, they did maximize the zoning, the allowable zoning, but there, as was included in Carrie's presentation, they could have done they had a 32% density bonus on top of what the zoning allows. So with the concessions and waivers, again, waivers are unlimited, and those tend to be, they're more physical preclusions. So it's reducing or it's basically reducing development standards if it's creating a physical preclusion of them being able to build out to the density and provide the other development standards that are required. And then the concessions tend to be more related to feasible economic feasibility. How did I do?
Pretty good. So 2 different things going on. So density bonus, great job. So density bonus is a separate law than SB 330. SB 330 with the Housing Crisis Act of 2018 basically allowed for developers to submit what's called a pre-development application, and the state said if they submit these specific things that we basically will set a date by which it will hold all the development standards as well as the fees. And so with that, we would send, when somebody submits an SB 330, we determine whether that is complete or have those documents been submitted. It doesn't matter if they're correct or anything. Did they submit what is required? And so that is what we call a pre-application submittal. And whether or not that's complete. And so that's what locks that in. Their application has to basically match that, and it can only change up to 20% of the density since then. But when they initially came to you and then submitted their SB 330, they submitted under the 50 unit one. And so they haven't changed. So they met all the requirements to maintain their SB 330 application. So that's what that is. So that's separate from density bonus.
Great, thank you. So fair to say that the approval of the waivers and concessions that are requested are not before, that's not before the commission tonight.
You're still approving, according to the code, you're still making findings of accepting the density bonus. And so that is in your findings section, and approving that the requests are meeting the standards. So that's what is in your findings and your resolution today.
And my understanding is the waivers are not, but the concessions technically can be, but it's difficult to meet the requirements. The city would be hard pressed to meet the requirements yet to reject it.
It would be like a public safety
Correct.
standard or something.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. Yes.
Okay. Another question related to the traffic study is any traffic mitigation, any traffic implements, or any change in Highway 12 traffic signals or anything has to occur in order for this to happen, or recommended?
So Caltrans would control the requirements if there needed to be an additional turn lane or other physical changes to the main road. There wouldn't be a need for an additional traffic light. They do meet they don't exceed the thresholds that was conducted for the traffic study. I actually wrote down, so with the traffic generation that would be produced as a result of this project was around 350 additional trips per day, and it was about 20 of those during the peak morning hour, and that accounts for in and out. So that accounts for people turning into the development and going out during that AM peak hour, and the same is for the PM. It was 28 trips, extra trips during the PM peak hour.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you. Another question. It's my understanding that there are mitigation measures in place that are built in as conditions of approval for noise and air quality and such during construction. Can you just briefly speak to that and what is required of the developer during the construction process?
Sure. So generally, as with most larger developments, a traffic control plan is put into place, and that's also reviewed by the Public Works Department. They'll need to meet Caltrans requirements as well. And for dust, there's a watering schedule. So water is used at certain times, essentially actually when any dust arises. And I think we may have changed the language to be more broad because we want to be cognizant of the water conservation efforts that the state is trying to continue to utilize. So we didn't want to force the applicant during the rainy season to have to water in order to stay in compliance with their construction BMPs, the best management practices. So those are a couple examples. Also, you can't have any, this is just off the top of my head, so I did print out the mitigation plan. I can look at it if you'd like more detail, but having construction like operations, they have to make sure that the vehicles are working before bringing them to the site. And then of course they would have to abide by the construction hours as well.
Great, thanks. In that same vein, it's my understanding that there's an ongoing maintenance obligation as far as all the bioretention stuff, to make sure that exists in perpetuity, correct?
Yes, that's absolutely accurate.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Barnett.
You may not be able to answer this question. From time to time, we have had applications come before this commission, which we have approved. We actually rarely disapprove anything here, but they don't get built. And do we have any indication from this developer as to both having gained their entitlements through this process, do they intend to actually build the project? And if so, do we know when it will be started and when it's estimated for completion?
Yeah, so I'll provide the answers that I can, and Jennifer might have more to add. So as far as the schedule, I'd have to actually refer back to the mitigation plan. There's a few things that come into play. They have to be cognizant of, or not just cognizant, but abide by the biological mitigation. So that can be challenging, during certain nesting seasons and such. As far as entitlements and using those entitlements, I'll refer to Jennifer. I think she may have had conversations about that. Maybe I'm wrong.
So obviously the developer's here and they can respond to that question, so we'll let them do that part. But as with all development projects, they have 2 years in which to exercise the entitlements, and or the option is always there to sell the entitlements. Any future development is tied to this project as approved, including the conditions of approval. So any modifications, let's say if it was sold, any modifications to that would come back to you all for your approval as well.
Okay.
And I believe we've had 1 or 2 successful projects that have come to fruition through de novo. 3.
Yes, I understand they actually have built what they've gotten approved. Maybe we can get the applicant's representative to give us whatever information she has.
Thank you. It's a very good question. It is our intention to go ahead and build this new community. Market conditions allowing us to go ahead and do so. As far as the schedule, as I think what Diane was alluding to is the nesting bird season between February 1st and August 31st. So essentially we would have to go and do all of our nesting bird surveys before then. And then, of course, we would be taking all of our improvement plans and our construction drawings to the city as well. So as soon as we receive this approval, we can start moving forward with the city on the rest of it. You know, our intention would really be to break ground next year and start construction next year.
And how long do you anticipate the construction of the project will take?
Generally, in a project of this size and scale, it will probably take us a good 6 months to do land development. And then we would start construction on the buildings, a 3-story structure with this number of units. We're probably looking at about 7 to 8 months of actual construction for each building. And then we would kind of build it in phases. Does that help?
Well, so from the point in which you initiate the work, we're talking 2 years to completion?
Possibly, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Miss, before you sit down, I just want to make sure there are no more questions for the developer's representative while she's standing there. Commissioner Nugent.
2 questions, one of which Commissioner Barnett posed and answered for me. I was concerned about the timeline. Second question is, what is, if you can just, and maybe it's more for staff, when you come to marketing the product, the low-income products, are they given what's the timeline for that? Are they given like a preliminary opportunity to purchase? What do they have to go through? What is that process? Or is it just you're putting it out there to the market and whomever?
So this is a rental product, so it's not a for sale product.
Got it.
So when Ms. Watt was talking about the phasing and building phasing, because of the situation of the lot being just one access point and things like that, I'm pretty sure that by phasing we're just talking about construction, not actually releasing to lease. And so just because of the constraints, and so all of them would be available at the same time. I'm assuming they'll still use their nonprofit arm to do.
Maybe.
Okay, so they may
Is
do
it
the
a lottery?
So
No. Do people apply
so they
for
have
those 13 available units?
So yeah, we have, typically it's made available and the city will advertise it through our means and they'll list it through theirs as well. And then we work with whoever maintains the management side of the property. We maintain access to their rent rolls and we make sure that the rents are being accurate and that the individuals that move into those spaces are also meeting the requirements of those different levels.
So is it a first come, first serve if you do indeed meet the requirements?
Qualify. Typically it is.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the developer's representative? Okay, I have one more.
Okay.
Do you mind if I cut while she's standing here?
It's good. Standing up and down is good for me.
Can you just briefly speak to what, if any, neighborhood outreach has been done by DeNova in the surrounding neighborhoods?
Sure.
Aside from the initial study session, if there's been any, and maybe include how adjacent properties might bring up concerns during construction or afterward.
Right.
I'd appreciate it.
So the city doesn't actually have a specific process for holding neighborhood meetings within the SB 330 timeframe. Under SB 330, we're only really allowed to have 5 public hearings. In this case, the public has been able to attend and be informed through our initial 2021 Planning Commission work session. In addition, we've had other public forums such as the scoping session for the EIR, and the site has been posted actually for development for over a year, and everyone within a certain radius has been notified. And that is essentially the outreach that's been undertaken. So we are aligning ourselves with the city's process at this point.
Great, thank you for that. Any other questions for, you have a staff question? Thank you very much. Commissioner O'Neill.
Yeah, two questions. First, remind me on the affordable units, what is the time on that? Is it 50 years? I can't remember what it is.
These are in perpetuity.
In perpetuity. Oh, that's fabulous. Okay, second question. Do we have anything in our city's guidelines that would prevent the owner of a rental unit of securing all the low affordable units for their own personal contacts?
Yes.
How do we do that?
I'll answer that one. It's in our affordable housing agreement that will be signed with the owners, and then that runs with the land. So, and it applies to everybody moving forward.
Thank you.
Does any other member of the commission have any questions for staff or the applicant? Okay. At this time, I would open the meeting up to public comment that is specific to this agenda item. Please come forward, state your name.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. My name is Omar Lopez. I'm the policy coordinator at Generation Housing and here to support the voice support for the Montaldo Apartments project. The project represents the kind of thoughtful housing Sonoma needs. It will deliver 13 affordable units at the extremely low, very low and low income levels in perpetuity. This is a lasting commitment that will serve generations for residents. In total, it adds 50 new apartments at the allowed density, directly contributing to meeting the city's housing goals, which are very important. Equally important, the design focuses on livability with usable open space and 5 distinct floor plans. The project provides real options for households of different sizes and needs. And despite a long and costly entitlement process, the project team has remained committed to keeping this project moving forward, and that deserves some recognition. For all these reasons, we urge the Commission to certify the EIR as presented and approve the project so that these much-needed homes can move forward. Thank you for your time and for your service.
Thank you so much for your comments. Any other members of the public? Caitlin.
Good evening, Caitlin Cornwall, Sonoma Valley Collaborative. The collaborative also wants to support this project. It's the kind of infill, higher density, more affordable project that really all members of your constituencies are really needing to see more of in Sonoma Valley. So it seems like a great project all around. And thank you for everyone involved for sticking with it. One thing that the collaborative is really interested in watching and tracking more and working with the city and the county on is the degree to which these dedicated lower cost units that are inclusionary really are going to people that they're designed for. Over time, it's a hard thing to track. So that's just something that we're looking at, but obviously there's nothing to even enforce if they don't get built in the first place. So this is a great little project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to address the commission on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment and we'll bring it back to the commission for commissioner comments. Discussion. Who would like to go? Ms. O'Neill.
I'd like to thank Carrie and DeNova for going through this process. I remember the first study session. I remember the subsequent meetings on this, and I think it's been a long process, but I appreciate you guys working through this with us, and I think that the project here is a lot better now, and I am going to be in favor of it, and I really hope that we get more kids in Sonoma. So I'm hoping that this project will be part of that process of helping us make it affordable for people with children to live here.
Great, thank you. Any other commissioners have comments? Commissioner Barnett.
Well, I think the issue of whether I support or don't support this project is moot. 330 has taken that discretion away from me. And I've said many times in past meetings what I think of the impact of the state laws and the removal of the local authority and discretionary projects. So I'm not going to repeat myself. This is something we don't have any choice but to approve. And so it will be approved. And I will vote to approve it because it's pointless to, at this point, for me to not. I am disappointed that there's not more variety in sizes. And as we all know, a studio is going to rent for less than a 2-bedroom. And by making this all 2 bedrooms, it may prove better for larger families or couples, but it's also not going to be particularly affordable other than the ones that are mandated affordable. Because if I understand it, the 2-bedroom apartments in Sonoma are generally at market rates, pricey, and are hard to fill. So I'm sorry to see that there's not some studios and 1-bedrooms and smaller things for, single working professionals who may want to live and work in Sonoma. But this project is what it is. It's gone through many iterations and undoubtedly will contribute a positive way to the housing stock. And so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Willers?
I'll reiterate what Commissioner Barnett said. Unfortunately, the commission's discretion has been taken away from it by the state. And there are many things about this project that I don't like. I don't like the way that it utilizes the site. I don't like the way that all circulation is relative to a driveway surrounded by garage doors, and you access your front door via either through the garage or via some sidewalk that is adjacent to, in this case, in the northern building, the wall of the adjacent parking lot. And it's unfortunate that this is what the state basically is requiring small communities to accept. It's the partie of development throughout California, this 3-story stacked over a garage with no creativity in terms of site use or community development. It's just simply stacking them up, putting them side by side, and making it easy for a developer to get approval without the discretion of the state. I'm glad that we're getting 13 affordable units. I also wish that we had some way of requiring more variety in terms of numbers of bedrooms in a project. I do think that there's a lack of small rental units in this community, and you exclude a large majority of renters by having a $3,000 2-bedroom entry point. That's what their project on West Spain is currently renting for their 2-bedroom apartments. And I don't think that we need a lot more of that here. I think what we really need is things that are affordable with a capital A and affordable with a small a by their size. So I'm, I don't hold it against the developer that the state's allowing them to do these things and that we've had our discretion taken away from us, but at the same time, I'm not encouraged by this project. I think the only benefit of it is that it's basically back off the highway and we won't have to look at it.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments? Okay, I will wrap it up by saying that, in the world of planning, we look at things through the lens of the highest and best use of land, and it's my opinion that this is the highest and best use of that land. It aligns with our general plan, our housing element priorities, and I think it represents the kind of careful and well thought out infill that our community really should be embracing in order to meet our housing obligations. And for those reasons, I will be supporting it. Seeing no other comments, would anybody like to venture a motion? And I will say that for anybody who attempts to do that, it would be either a two-part motion, but we need to we need to address the environmental component first in order to make that a.
Yeah, you can make it a single motion, or you can make it a two-part. If you make it a two-part, environmental needs to go first.
Understood. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. So I'll do it in one. So I'll move to adopt a resolution certifying the final EIR, adopting the mitigation, monitoring, and reporting program, and making the required findings, including a statement of overriding considerations. And 2, a resolution approving a design review density bonus, demolition permit, and parcel merger for the demolition of an existing single-family home for the construction of a 50-unit multi-rental residential development.
Very well done. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I think that was Mr. Latimer. Beat you by a half second. Wonderful. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Barnett,
Aye.
Commissioner Latimer,
Aye.
Commissioner Nugent,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Gorman Jenkins.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Neill,
Yes.
Commissioner Willers,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wyrick,
Aye.
Youth Member Pedersen.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great. Congratulations. Thank you very much for being in attendance. I appreciate it. Okay. With the conclusion of 4.1, we will move on to item 4.2 of the public hearing, which is a discussion, consideration, and possible adoption of a resolution recommending to adopt an ordinance amending the ordinance that deals with projections into the right-of-way by accessory structures, right, or awnings.
All right, so the next item, as stated by Vice Chair Wyrick, is a discussion and consideration and the possible adoption of the resolution for modifications to design review ordinance section 1940-110D, and 1954-080D. So both of these are being modified. We discussed this at the last Planning Commission meeting, so if you weren't there, hopefully you had a chance to watch it. This was brought up because I had questions around how to treat awnings and the marquees and other types of treatments like that extend in the public right-of-way that are on the face of a lot of commercial buildings. And we hadn't specifically identified them in the design review process at what we wanted to exempt in that. And so I wanted to make sure that we incorporated that with all of our other lovely updates that we've done before we start promoting and everything of all of the exemptions and what the triggers would be for an exemption. So with that, in your packets before, and then I edited for the packet today, based on the comments that we had received about trying to try not to be so subjective. So I did remove a term out of there that was pretty subjective, and I agreed with you.
We would like to thank and excuse the city attorney.
And then also the request to provide the examples of awnings. And so with that, I just want to clarify that we did, the the change that I went ahead and made was to remove that one subjective concern. I can put it up. Give me the HDMI. There you go. Can you see it now? All right. So awnings, marquees, canopies compatible with the overall design of the main structure and do not obscure the architectural features. There was another clause in there that now I can't even remember. It was so subjective. That was brought up, and so I removed it. And what my intent is with our examples that we have is to show what we mean with the compatibility, and then also to not obscure architectural features. And then I referenced the new section, or not, it's not a new section, but the amended section in the projections into the public right-of-way. Also, kept the section we discussed before about that structures that are listed or determined eligible for listing shouldn't exceed the width of the storefront opening or associated commercial window opening. And I'll bring up the examples to kind of show what that means. Here's that section that we also talked about that I was just referenced above in the design review exemption section, and this is where we are talking about that the more of the clarifying details about where these should be placed on a building and how high, and that their projection to a curb, and then also the height, how high does the actual awning go, etc. And the reason why I put that in there, which we can take out, it's totally fine. I'm going to show you some examples in which awnings are exceeding, let's say, a height of 16 feet. They're going way above a windowsill, things like that. So I'm going to show you those different types of examples right here. All right, here's my first one. So these are right next to each other. One is on the left-hand side. It's kind of filling void. It is way over the window. The whole structure is over the window. I'm assuming it still works as an awning and providing shade. And then the other example is Basque, whose awning goes all the way almost to the very top of the building. So those are two examples of not what we would move forward with. So if Basque came in under the new ordinance and said, I'm going to put up a new awning, we would say, okay, your new awning needs to fit within these height measurements and not extend all the way to the top of your building.
And taking the case of the one on the right, unless I'm mistaken, that awning also projects further out over the sidewalk, which probably explains the height, because, you know, to sustain the same angle of the awning and have it projecting as far out over the sidewalk as it is would by necessity require it to be higher up on the building. So have you incorporated any language into this as to how far over the sidewalk an awning may project? Mm-hmm. And does this exceed your current language of that?
No. So what it does is it'll say you cannot be taller. So when your projection, we don't want anybody to hit their head. So we have a height that it has to be set at the base.
Yes, 8
and then
feet.
it can go taller.
Right.
And then you can have the valance section be to 7. And then you can project all the way out up to, we're saying 3 feet from the curb. So you can go all the way to extend almost to the curb. You have to be 3 feet from it. So like our marquees are a good example of this. I have a picture of that. But our marquees are a good example where they extend pretty much all the way across our sidewalks, which is fine. We're just saying let's leave 3 feet. And the 3 feet are typically our utility poles, street signs, things like that usually are within that 3 feet public right-of-way space. more for these instances of the placement of the awning. Is it serving as an awning or is it an architectural feature? So I'm saying if it's an awning, let's treat it like an awning for its purposes. If it's an architectural feature, that's a different conversation.
And do you believe that this, using this picture on the right again, do you believe that the missing panel on the upper section in the photograph is simply there because the panel got removed for some reason?
It's flapping. You can see it's
I
in the-
see. So there actually was fabric there.
Yeah,
but
it's right here.
yeah. Okay.
It fell.
Yep.
So if they came in and they said, I wanted to replace the fabric and not the structure, we would let them do that. If they wanted to replace the whole thing in the new structure, if this code was adopted, we would say, please replace it to meet these standards in order to be exempt. If they didn't want to do that, then they're coming to you for approval. Does that make sense? Okay.
Do we ever require them to repair this? It appears that it's in disrepair. Do we
It
ever-
needs some
do we-
attention. We have
but I
a
mean,
few.
do we have anything where we say, hey, you gotta clean that up?
We could. There's a few awnings in town that need some love.
Jennifer, before you go past that one, were you saying that the one on the left is also outside the guidelines? Can you explain that to me?
It's not within the window. So typically, I'm trying to see, I gotta go back up to what I put in here. Let's see.
In other words, it's too high? Is what you're saying?
She's saying it's
Too high off in height?
It can be high, it can't be low. Let's see, no portion of any awning shall be higher than the windowsill level of the lowest story, exclusive of the ground story and mezzanine, or extend above the bottom of a projecting upper story window bay, which this is not the case. And in no case shall the awning exceed a height of 16 feet from the ground level of the roof line. So this is just the things that we would check to make sure.
But I like that awning.
And
I don't see what's wrong with it.
So I also have a question related to the language here, and that is,
Sure.
Don't you mean window head?
do
The sill is the bottom of the window.
I do mean window. Where did I go?
No portion higher than the head of the window, the top
Of
of
the
window.
lowest story. Yes, I did.
Okay.
Do you want to finish your presentation before we open up to questions, or do you care?
Okay. We're working through it.
We're all friends here.
But I agree with you that somehow in the language that the awnings should be secondary to the architecture of the building. Somehow and you're trying to do that with words, I get it. Because I do think that the awning on the right, the boulangerie awning, essentially covers the entire building. And it really does, in my opinion, disrupt the street front architecturally, and just becomes one giant sign, really.
And so this is a historic building, so this is kind of the example where awnings are traditionally placed within the window opening. And then you can also see a little marquee, canopy actually in this case, over the entrance. So those are just two other examples. We historically have a lot. When I was walking around, I was like, wait, marquee, just going around. So I'm glad I added those words.
And this is the way they were traditionally used rather than as signs.
Yeah, and I think it actually is the traditional awning that actually will retract.
Will retract to get light in the winter.
So then here's Sebastiani. So again, we have a big theater marquee, and then we have awnings. So also in traditional commercial architecture, you have awnings placed in this location, and what the windows that are above are called transom windows. And you typically would not put an awning up there, you put it over your storefront. And so when we say storefront is basically the bay. It's the window and the door openings. That's a storefront. And so awnings are traditionally placed in that way. And so that's the goal with the historic resources is let's keep it traditional. Some cases our transoms are, which I think is the case in this real estate office, I don't know, not Town Square, but they're blackened from the inside because we've done drop ceilings. And so they don't serve the same purpose that they used to serve, which is to let light in. In some cases, we have another building in town that I did not take a picture of. It's a special glass. If you've seen the squares on our stone building that the brain is not working on the plaza. The courtyard one.
Carnegie?
The one where the Sonoma.
The Oddfellows Hall.
The stone building.
Steiner's.
No, the stone building on First Street.
The one over by Sweet Scoops?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that building, if you look at the transoms, they have the traditional square glass in there. And so one of the goals with that building also is to preserve those square glass pieces and have them visible. It helps diffuse the light. Here's another example of a traditional storefront where you see the awning treatment. Again, whether it's retractable or affixed, it's over the entire storefront, and then the transom is left exposed. This again allows light into the structure. And then this is another example where the awning is more like an architectural feature than an awning, and wraps the entire building. I understand it. You know, sometimes when we have a lot of void space on, you know, structures, we fill it with things. And in this case, it was an awning.
But this is not unattractive.
It's not unattractive. The question is, does this get exempted? Is this something staff approves, or is this something planning commission needs to approve on a case-by-case basis? And that's where I was going with the approach, is when we treat awnings more as an architectural feature to the structure versus an awning as a traditional awning use as a shade structure. Because when we do have signs too, when we change the sign ordinance, which I know you guys are working on right now, some aspects of that sign, if it meets the code, will be exempt potentially and not come before you for approval unless it again exceeds that size. So this is why I wanted to show you these pictures. So thank you, Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you. These pictures help a lot. But I have one question. Are we having problems with awnings in Sonoma that we needed to address this? I mean, I haven't heard, other than during COVID when Cafe La Haye did put up theirs, but that had the post that went out into the sidewalk.
So we don't allow that at all, and so that's clarified in here, is that we're not going to allow that for canopy structures. The aspect of this is that we didn't say anything. We were silent in the design review, and it's, I would rather be clear so that when something comes forward, staff's able to say, this does not, this can be exempted, or this needs to go to planning commission. It came up because somebody asked for a second story awning recently, and so on the plaza, and I was like, I didn't have that in the code. I didn't talk about it. And so that's the part of the impetus for actually bringing this back, was I wanted some clarity around that, and especially as some of these may change over time, that I wanted clarity. We require any awnings with signs to come and get an approval. So in my mind, if you don't have a sign on it, shouldn't you be treated in a similar fashion?
And is a sign defined as a name of a business, or just a descriptive term or lettering of any kind?
It would be anything associated with that business.
So an awning that says real estate but doesn't say the name of the company would be deemed a sign?
Yes.
I have a question. At the beginning part of your ordinance or statement said that you get approval for this if it does not obscure the architectural features of the building.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't by definition an awning obscuring the architectural features of the building? Are you trying to make the objective standards, if they meet the objective standards, then by definition it's met the subjective standards of not obscuring the architectural features of the building? I'm just worried that you could drive a truck through that comment and require more approval here than at the staff level for having that in there.
So my intent with all the things that we're exempting is to provide examples of what to do, or the drawings that show how to do it. And so this, like the one that I just put up, when we talk about architectural features, and let's say the awning right now is in the window, the one that's before you on the screen. An architectural feature is that design element that you see that wrap around. And let's say they put Basque awning on this building. So that's where I'm going with covering architectural features.
Maybe you didn't. My question was only the subjective standard that you had at the beginning about the awning is approved if it doesn't obscure the architectural features. Don't they obscure, depending upon where you're standing, they're obscuring the architectural features of the building, right?
So architectural features is a defined term when it comes to
If you're underneath the awning, is it obscuring the architectural features of the building?
So no, so it's within the,
Okay.
so we're covering the window. So when I'm saying architectural features of the building, like the picture that you see here, you're seeing design features like, and that's where some more of that detail was in like the pilasters,
Okay.
which is the flat columns
Yep.
that you see on the building and things like that.
Sorry, you can use that as a description of what the intent is. Like, I can see this building being improved from an awning standpoint if the awnings were if there was a major awning maybe over the entrance and the two side windows, and an awning over the secondary doors and windows separately, so that the corner of the building reads and the rhythm of the pilasters of that facade also read as a building rather than as an awning as a porch. And so that's where the design, the subjectivity comes. Mm-hmm. And I think the way that you're trying to define the awning and its placement and its impact on the building in a kind of tight box to allow an exemption to move forward without design review is a great move forward. And then these kinds of features, if someone wants to come forward with this, it should go through the design review process because it's a big feature and a big impact.
Do you have more of your report, or do you want to take questions?
No, I'm
Okay.
questions.
Any other questions from the commission for the director?
No more questions. I'd like to add a comment to Mr. Willers, which is I think this building that's pictured right now, the Century 21 canopy, provides a pretty good indication of when something needs to be reviewed from a design standpoint, because this isn't a canopy that's associated with a single business because it wraps around the building. It also ends up being a canopy for all the other businesses in the building that face on the parking lot. And so I think that what we see here is a major design feature of the building as a whole, as opposed to an associated canopy with an individual business. And in cases like that, where you're essentially having an impact on the entire look of the entire building, I think those demand a more scrutiny.
Any other questions for the director?
Just a comment in seeing these photographs. what's highlighted for me is that there's a lack of maintenance and cleanliness, et cetera. I don't know, it's interesting to see them, that, is there anything in place to say, hey, you know, you've got a broken awning, when do we say you gotta replace it?
I'll look into that.
Or clean it? Take a hose to it.
You try to clean it, it's gonna fall apart.
I have a question. Would you clearly you've done some reconnaissance. Would you care to venture a rough estimate as to how many existing awnings, canopies, marquees would not comply with the ordinance that we're contemplating? Most?
No, not very many, honestly. I think I took the pictures of the ones that I felt didn't meet what we would put in the standard. Again, doesn't make people change them. They would be grandfathered in. It's when the structure itself gets modified that we would then ask for compliance. So if they just wanted to put new fabric on, that's not going to trigger that.
Understood. Any other questions? No. Okay. Yes, Ms. Commissioner O'Neill.
So, going back to the one next to the Bass Bakery, that one looks new. What process did they go through to have that one?
I don't know, because it's not a sign. I don't know if it was part of the design, like when it came forward for design review at that time. Maybe it already had awnings and maybe it changed.
But they were original to the building.
Yeah, so it might have come.
They used to be a bright kind of teal color.
So when the fabric change, we're not gonna get into the color game, but the design review process, if you know, maybe the so maybe this building, when it went through design review process, it either maybe it was part of the building or it was a sign permit, and that was when they did it. I'm not sure. So again, the goal is to create avenues for exemptions, paths of least resistance, and then if they want to do something else, there's an avenue for that as well. So it's not saying you can't do this again. We're just saying, please go through a design review process for it.
Thank you. And thank you for the photographs. I never noticed that bear above the entry to the attorney's office. Never noticed it.
It's a
I
great
probably
building.
walked past
Did you
it
notice it as a
million
chimney?
It is.
Look at all those chimneys.
Easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, if there are no more questions, I will open this item to public comment. If there's anybody in the gallery who would be interested in opining, please step forward and state your name.
Hi, Tom Graves. I live here in Sonoma. I'm delighted you're paying so much attention to this. It's clearly very hard to define, you know, as much as you try, what's proper, and that can change with each building. I would make two suggestions. One is, and no one has suggested this, but from my point of view, I would hate to see the plaza and the other businesses in the town homogenized with one awning, one anything, frankly. Yet no one has suggested that. As just my word of warning. But the commissioner has done such a great job trying to define the standards, but I think many of us agree the standards are what we see with our eyes and what we find tasteful and appropriate or not tasteful and appropriate. So if there is such a opportunity for things to be defined, but the city staff has the ability to say, we don't find that appropriate, and if the building owner or store person disagrees, they can come to you and make their case. And seems to me that kind of covers the basis. So thank you. Thank you for your attention to this.
Appreciate your comments. Any other members of the public wishing to comment on this agenda item? All right. Seeing none, I will close public comment and bring it back to the commission if there are any final comments or if we have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the modifications as discussed.
With the one modification of the windowsill being
With the modifications as discussed, yes.
one though, right? Okay, just checking.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Barnett,
Aye.
Commissioner Louderberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Nugent,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Gorman Jenkins, Commissioner O'Neill,
Yes.
Commissioner Willers,
Yes.
Vice Chair WIRICK,
Aye.
and Youth Member Pedersen.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great, moving right along. That would conclude the public hearing portion of tonight's agenda. We'll move on to items for discussion. Item number 5.1 is a discussion of the general plan ad hoc committee comments on the available draft general plan elements. Staff report, please.
So, no staff report. We just dive right into the documents. And so I'm going to do that here in just a second. So the first one that we are going to start with is the conservation and open space. And in your packet, which I'm bringing, is here we go. Yep. Are going to be the comments that are provided by the general plan ad hoc, which at that time was Commissioner Willers and DAMBACH, and has since been adding, we've added Commissioner O'Neill. But these are just the DAMBACH and Willers comments, and hopefully you had a chance to review everything. And so similar to what we did last time, I am going to just ask in general, page by page. I can reduce this a little bit, or I can keep it at this same scale that we're at right now. If there's any comments, suggestions, thoughts, feelings around the introduction. And if Commissioner Willers, since he's here, and Chair DAMBACH's not, if Commissioner Willers wants to say anything before we get started, he's more than welcome to, or we can just dive right in. Nope. Okay. Diving in. So we have two elements to go through tonight. So the first one is this one, and then the second one will be the circulation. So my goal is to finish these two, and we will have finished 4. And then those 4 I'm combining with the comments that I received from the public, as well as the other commissions I've presented to and the general plan task force. All comments for these 4, I have requested that it ends tomorrow at the end of the day, so that way I have time to put them all together and get them to our consultant. We have 4 more to go. We will already, utilities is out and available, so we'll be bringing that shortly. And then we will have land use, cultural resources, and last will be safety element. We're still completing the evacuation study. So those will be the last 4 that we'll be doing. As of right now, I don't think we need to have a special meeting. As long as we get through these 2 today, we should be fine to get through them, probably at our November meeting. Probably touch on a couple in October, but otherwise November. All right, introduction on the conservation and open space element. Are there any comments, thoughts, suggestions, questions? Sure.
Would matters of funding, for example, for the acquisition and preservation of open space, normally be found in an element like this? In other words, it's in some portion, there's going to have to be a implementation measure, which I assume would include recommendations about how to accomplish the goals and objectives, one of which would be for the city, for example, to create a open space preservation fund or something.
We'll get down into that little general vicinity, and then we can look at that specific language in there. But we do talk about park and Luffy if it's available to us. We also talk about the Quimby fees, and then, as always, we go after grants and then partnership opportunities. So, like the Montini Preserve was a partnership opportunity to get that open space. So that is in here in a little bit. And again, comments are on the side, and then there will be some edits within, depending on the format of the document. And even though you see my name, so just a refresher, so you'll see comments from Willers and DAMBACH, and then you'll see my name, and this is, we meet together, and then I'll add maybe some additional clarifying questions or thoughts and things. So like in this case, you'll see at the bottom I say make actions for the shuttle. And so it's a reminder to myself to do something in that case. So here in this section is just, again, the contents are the summaries of each goal. And I'll update the summaries as the goal, if the goals themselves are being modified and changed.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
We talked about financial resources. I'm wondering about human resources.
Mm-hmm.
When we put this many goals down, who is responsible for achieving the goals?
Everybody. So staff.
Everybody meaning a staff of 5 or what?
I have 2 staff. So no, it's all departments. So this isn't just for planning. This is for the entire city. So we now have a parks department. So we have a parks director. We have a public works director, and so these different sections. So when we talk about this section, I'm working closely with both public works and parks to make sure that these are feasible. We also partner with a lot of organizations to help maintain what we have as well, and they provide a lot of community resources. So it's everybody in that sense. We also utilize general plan policies when we implement development projects. So we have to see, are they consistent with this? So developers, as they develop, also implement our general plan policies. That's why I said everybody, because I really do mean everybody has a role in this. You'll see in certain sections where we actually specifically reference organizations as examples of who we would partner with to do something.
Yeah, so that was kind of like, does somebody take responsibility for actually achieving the goal?
Yes.
For each particular goal, a different person may have the responsibility, or a different group may have the responsibility for doing that.
Yeah, so we'll have an administration section at the end where it's going to highlight basically who's the lead in some of these. In a lot of cases, the general plan is planning's responsibility to make sure that the other departments and everybody's working through them. Planning Commission is a big part of our general plan, and our goal as planners is also to make sure that City Council has these. This is supposed to also help set our goals and our funding goals and our policy determinations as a city. So this is you weren't here, Bart, for my very beginning of this process, but we talked about how a general plan is basically the top, and then we have a lot of little plans that come out of it, and a lot of policy documents and funding opportunities that feed from that. So.
Yeah, I mean, my comment that I made to you the other day was I'm just worried that this is overreaching, impossible to actually achieve. And I suppose you can set levels that are, but, are we better off making fewer goals that we can actually accomplish than a lot of goals that we're not able to accomplish? And Lord knows I have no idea whether that's the case or not.
Yeah, I mean, we always, again, it's a 20-year mark. We try not to make them too aspirational. We do want to have some realistic aspect to them. Some cases, some of these we'll do very quickly after it's adopted. And then other cases, some of these are going to be longer term. If opportunities arise, then we have a policy or an action that we can utilize to take advantage of that opportunity. I think I gave an example, I think to you, but I also gave it to the Pros Commission. Is you'll see things in here about open space that may not have to do with within our city boundaries, and because opportunities arise, and also in the circulation element. So opportunities come in where they request assistance on getting grants from the city. So can we write a letter of support? And so I wrote a letter of support to this county when they applied for grant funding for the 8th Street bicycle to acquire the right-of-way. And part of that is because it's in the general plan and our active transportation plan to support them and to support our whole system. So that's what that did. And then more recently, somebody reached out to help get a grant to acquire property on the ridge over here at Sonoma Mountain, the land trust, the Sonoma Land Trust. And again, there's something in here in our new one, and I think in the old one as well, about trying to preserve our ridge lines. We don't have but one little small section of our ridge line, but we can still potentially affect change outside of our city. Yep.
And, it's also that goals in some cases are programs, are things that are objectives for the city to implement. Other goals are, like in the majority of these, are guidelines for implementation. So to evaluate a project against. So if we want to conserve, protect, and enhance Sonoma's biological resources, when a project that impacts those, you reach back to these general statements to see whether or not you're meeting that goal and implementing that project. And then there are some goals that are purely aspirational, which will need a funding, a program, but those will fall through and have implementation measures of how to actually get to that point. So every one of these goals isn't something that necessarily has someone who's monitoring it and a deadline to meet it by. It's always a functional element to the general plan.
Any comments, thoughts, feelings about the language in the contents section?
I'm satisfied with it. Anyone else?
They all seem like good goals to me.
Okay. All right, let's get into the meat of the goals. So the first goal is around the biology and biological resources. So this is our plant and animal life, habitats, etc. And the good example that Commissioner Willers, when we have new development, we want to look at that. So we do like biology studies on vacant land to make sure there's no habitats. The comment earlier on the prior project about bird nesting, this comes from this section too. If I go too fast, just let me know. So again, comments, questions, thoughts around goal 1, policies. And then here are the actions. So again, the actions are supposed to be tied to the policies to implement them.
I have one question on that COS 1G about the nesting.
Sure.
Seeing the work they're doing up by Hughes Field right now on removing the eucalyptus trees, and I think that kind of fell into that issue about the bird nesting, right? And they couldn't complete it till after August 31st.
I think in that, so we have, there's certain things. You either just don't do it during the nesting season.
Right.
Or you do the nesting study, see if there's anything going on, any activity, and then if there is, then you have to do the
And I noticed that comment, it starts with where feasible, and I just found it really, educate me, I found it really disturbing that instead of taking the trees out earlier, they just kept the kids off the field, and they put yellow tape out on the field, and the kids weren't allowed to use that field. And I'm an environmentalist, but that just seemed
Yeah, I don't know what
not
the
feasible.
delay reasons for that. I mean, it was a county project.
Oh, it was county.
That's county land.
Okay. All right.
We partnered with them, and we're hoping
Well,
to.
I don't know where we can put in there, but I think that where feasible is great, and we have to have some way where we determine feasibility.
So this is where we go, if feasible or if not feasible. So you either avoid this season, and then if that's not feasible because you want to start construction or take down the trees, then they shall retain a qualified biologist to then figure out if there are nests in any of these trees before removal. That's the if feasible component of that.
Okay, and I wanted to push a little further and say, if there's birds on the trees, but there's kids underneath them,
So, yeah, it's a.
reasonable. There's got to be some. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that.
I think it's a federal law, actually.
I have a comment on this section too, not to jump ahead of you.
Go ahead.
In going through this, and I did read it in painstaking detail, this section in particular is so wonky. I mean, it really, is it appropriately placed? I understand it's an action item to support the goal, but it's so prescriptive.
It's oddly specific.
It felt like it's misguided, misplaced. Not because I don't support the policy, it just provides a level of detail I'm wondering should be somewhere else, and that should this be condensed a little. It just seemed mismatched from some of the other action items in terms of its level of detail, and maybe that's appropriate.
Yeah, so a couple of different things. One is it is a higher level of detail, and we had this discussion in our ad hoc as well. In some cases, there are a higher level of detail on certain aspects. I will say that these are because they are our mitigation measures that we utilize. in our projects. So when we say, oh, you're gonna do this, this is what you have to do. So this is where it's written out of what you're gonna have to do. So when you see the cultural and archaeology, which we have never had before, it's gonna be a little bit more explicit in like the archaeology and when are you going to actually do the survey. The other aspect of this, and the way that this consultant does works on these general plans, and so this is up to us, but the way he does the general plans are self-mitigating general plans. And so a lot of the mitigation measures that we would adopt for the general plan find their way into the general plan as these actions as well. Helps us so that we're not pulling out the EIR for the general plan and trying to find that to utilize on these projects.
I don't, if I may,
Commissioner Barnett?
I don't have difficulty with the level of specificity here. You know, when we look at other portions of the general plan, for example, the connection between land uses and zoning districts, and then the provisions that are associated with it, you have this whole section, and I'm assuming that our new general plan will be structured somewhat the same, is that you then have a development code which gets into all of these kinds of highly specific language about circumstances that come up and how you're supposed to deal with it. Now, when it comes to land use, that's customarily been viewed in general plans as the most legalistic element because you're dealing with private property and property rights and things like that. And it is essentially the language forms a constitution of land use law. We don't have a comparable development code for in the environmental element, for example. We don't have a separate document which, you know, embodies the procedures or the rules and the requirements. And so there's really not an alternative to this. This is really where that level of detail has to happen unless you created a secondary document which would also refer to it and read very much like this, and you'd call it, you know, the environmental conditions document or something. So, you know, it's just as you go through these general plans, they move from the aspirational goal portion settings to the actual implementation of how you do it. You got the policies in between, which is what you want to encourage, but ultimately the general plan has to include this level of detail, or you don't have something to refer to when something comes before you, and you don't want to have to basically figure out what to do about a situation on the spot. And now you can't always anticipate every possible variation of things that will come to you, and there are times even with this level of detail where you go, we haven't come up with this situation before, and so we've got to figure out what to do. This is helpful in terms of providing the framework for how you deal with situations that you encounter, and I just don't think there's an alternative to it. And I agree, it's very wonky, but that's where we go. We go from the general to the wonky.
Well, and thank you, and Mr. Vice Chairman, may I?
Oh, please.
And I appreciate your explanation. I don't have any objection to the specificity. I just didn't. I appreciate what you're saying. I just wasn't sure if there was another place for this because it is so detailed. But I appreciate the explanation, and no further comments on that section. Thank you.
Just to clarify, this 1G relates to all development within the city, correct?
Correct.
Commercial, private?
Anything having to do with the tree.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to lodge an objection to it on the basis of policy altogether.
It's law.
Which part?
It's the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. It's a federal law.
Right, but which aspect of that is federal law?
Is that you can't remove a tree during the nesting season.
That's so we have a section that mirrors this in our existing general plan that's in force now.
It is a standard mitigation measure for all projects that we should be enforcing. It's
So
law.
It's law.
It's law.
So why do we repeat it if it's already law?
So we are giving the specificity of you can do it, but this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna do a nesting, and then this is your buffer zones. This is what we're getting into, and so we're saying, here you go. This is what you need to do.
Understood.
And is it any specific avian or all?
It's, as
Is
far
there like
as.
a list of like protected
We have,
birds
so we have
or-
two different things. We've got just birds nesting, period. And then we have down a little further, if it's a habitat for a sensitive species. Very different things. When a bird nests and it's not a sensitive species, as soon as it's done nesting, you can tear down that tree.
Understood.
If you have a sensitive habitat for like the condors, you're not getting rid of that. So
That's an important distinction. Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate that. And on that note, I'm going to call a 5-minute recess.
Okay.
in the item for discussion portion of tonight's agenda?
I guess it's back to me.
Go right ahead.
So, here's another example of where we're listing a lot of things. So,
Jennifer, how much detail do you want us to get into tonight versus do you want us to keep it higher level? Like, what are your thoughts?
You can get into the weeds if you would
Okay.
like. If there's specific language, so like on this one, 1H, DAMBACH made a comment that suggests a yearly review. Periodically is not good, specific. So those are the types of things, if you have comments like that or questions. I think somewhere in here, there's another one where we had a question of like, does this group actually exist anymore? Like, where did this come from? And so one of the things that I've noted to myself is they've noted in a separate document for me what is carryover from the last general plan and what's new. So then my goal is to see what was in the one right before that as well, to see if we've continued some of these things, including commissions or committees that don't exist anymore. Any other comments, questions in the first goal, policies and actions? If not, moving on to the second, in the interest of time, because it's 8 o'clock. All right, this one's super short, but we, the comment on this one was around ensuring that soil quality specifically in this section, like adding something around soil quality.
So I have a comment.
Sure.
Well, first off, I just want, it's probably just a typo, but wouldn't this be 2A and B under actions?
Yeah.
Okay. It's just a question. And then on what would be, what's now 1J, which I think would be 2A, just a question around the requirement for an on-site soil survey. I'm assuming this is large-scale construction. This isn't like a blanket requirement for all projects. Is there some specificity as it pertains to when this is triggered?
It is in our ordinance. I would have to look specifically. It's in our water efficiency.
Okay, that's okay. I was trying to approach this, reading it as an average citizen that doesn't necessarily understand, and so a comment would be maybe specifying when that is triggered and what it applies to.
So it's really, it's really around the landscaping and doing water efficiency, water efficient landscaping. So we need, Commissioner Willers explains the soil here very well, are, making sure that the soil capacity to actually absorb water. That's basically what that soil survey is doing, is what kind of topsoil do you have, and are we just going to create more runoff, or are we actually absorbing and doing? And so do you need different types of soil added to mix in? That's the intent of that with our WILO ordinance, which WILO too. So that's what that's about.
And how does the topic of minerals come in? I mean,
It's a requirement from the state to talk about. So we don't have mineral issues. Like, we don't produce different types of minerals. I think it's just a section. All right, rolling. Goal 3, air quality and greenhouse gases. If you don't want to comment on this section, I've got a lot of comments, but you can. Yes.
I have comments.
You're fine.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. This is why we're doing this, is to get more comments.
Well, thank you. So my comment pertains to 3.3.
Okay.
It specifies AB 32 and SB 32 implementation, and I'm just gonna nerd out from my current profession. I do believe there is a new standard that
Okay.
has been adopted in 2022, AB 1279. And what this does is it's a net zero GHG by 2045. So I guess my comment or question for the consultant would be just to make sure that we are applying the most up-to-date standards, since the state, I think, has updated that in new legislation.
Okay, what was it again, AB?
AB 1279, and I believe it's a 2045 net zero GHG emission standard. So it's even more rigorous than 32, AB 32 and SB 32. So it just may be something to
Okay.
flag that, and there's a couple different sections throughout where AB 32 and SB 32 is referenced. So we may want to also flag some of the goal sections.
Okay.
So 3C as well as 3G. To update that standard, assuming I'm accurate.
That's fine. So I put look up. And I already forgot the number. 12. Thank you. Others?
Question,
Sure.
as to 3.5, require new development to incorporate green building measures attained necessary to achieve Calgary in Tier 1.
Your dad did that.
Well, I'll know who to talk to.
It's already
Y'all
in
live
the
a small town, huh?
it's already in the building code. We adopted it already.
Because it's state law.
No, Tier
No?
1 is not.
So remind me,
Oh, don't.
okay. Tier 1, obviously it's the highest
It is.
standard. Okay. I thought that was a way that the state of the law was moving anyway, no?
It did not move that way this year. I can't remember what it's at now, but it's not to Tier 1 with the new code.
But this is anticipatory for,
Well, we already adopted
Uh.
when we adopted the building code 2 years ago. That's when we added the Tier 1 status. So at that time, it's called REACH. So we added, we can be more restrictive or
Passport, yeah.
rigorous or things on specific aspects
Okay.
of our building code, and we did.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Others? Okay. Going once, going twice. All right, goal number 4. Climate change, adaptation, and resiliency. This is a required section as well, per state law. If you have questions about it, let me know.
I'm not sure what 4.1 even means. Promote a well-prepared community that can effectively overcome natural disasters. Well, I mean, I hope that we're in some fashion able and somewhat prepared to overcome natural disasters, but I'm not sure what promoting it means.
Just don't demote it.
Could you reframe it consistent with the goal statement at the top instead of saying promote, maintain?
Mm-hmm.
That suggests that we have a status quo.
Fair enough.
Yes.
But I don't like promote either.
Ensure.
Well, really, what it really comes down to is develop a plan is really what needs to happen. Because that's what we don't have, is we don't have a plan other than our emergency operations center plan.
Ms. Nugent, I heard you say a word that I will sign on to. Support.
So you're saying design, this plan needs to be designed that will support
Yes.
a well-prepared community.
Yes.
how about if we say plan for a well-prepared community? Develop a plan.
I get the idea.
I'm not sure if 4.3 is possible or realistic. I'm not really sure that PG&E or the phone cell providers are going to be interested in spending a lot of time working on with us on anticipated climate change impacts. So while it's an admirable idea, it's completely impractical.
I think it's the word ensure.
So we're collaborating to ensure, but this is one of those aspirational, as opportunities arise.
Aspirational policy?
Aspire to collaborate.
Well, there was someone from PG&E at the city council meeting last night that was talking about undergrounding and tree trimming and all of that. So that is directly related to this.
Well, and you know it's
policy.
in their goals as well.
Well, yeah, because
So I think that the fact that we recognize it's going to be in utilities goals and we agree to collaborate with them is just stating that we fully intend to be good partners with the utility companies while we go forward on this.
And we are a utility provider too. We have a water. And we are working with them on hardening too and things like that. So.
On number 4.8, I've many times made comments about the state legislature passing laws that indicate they don't know their ass from their elbow about what different committees are doing. So you've got, at the same time that the state is pushing for tree covers to reduce heat islands in parking lots, they are about to impose, potentially this year under the auspices of the fire marshal, requirements for the removals of trees adjacent to buildings. In a major way, we're talking about standards of, which of course make no sense, of 100 feet of defensible area around structures in high fire zones, of which the city has a substantial amount of real estate, and that in all cases the vegetation be removed that's as close as 5 feet to a structure to reduce leaf debris.
that's already state law.
Yes, it is. It just hasn't been implemented yet.
Well,
And they're talking about the implementation of it.
it is implemented.
It is implemented.
And so there's nothing allowed within 5 feet that's combustible, except for specific kinds of plant materials that are not considered combustible. Mulch isn't allowed within 5 feet of the building because it burns. Trees are not required to be cut down within 100 feet. They are required to be laddered so that they are not combustible from the ground in high fire zones. Within 30 feet of the building, there are mitigation measures that allow you to still landscape, allow you to still have trees, but they are mitigation measures and required by law to have a landscape that doesn't promote laddering of fire to buildings. And so I have to, every site plan that I do that's in a high fire zone, I have to show what those degrees of separation and preparedness are on that property.
And you have to do it if
It's-
you're going to get homeowners insurance.
It's state law.
That's the bottom line.
I understand, and so my point is that this item basically points out the contradiction between cool roofs, tree shade cover, reduced expanses of dark pavement, and other cooling strategies. The fact is that on the one hand, trees, which provide much of that, are now being eliminated as a strategy. At the same time, they're being employed as a strategy for these things. Now, if that isn't a case of the ass and the elbow not communicating, I don't know what is.
Well, it comes down to where the extreme fire hazard zones have been overlain on top of what is basically urban development rather than rural development.
Yeah.
And that's where the rub's coming for us now.
Well, and if you look at
Because-
if you look at the map of the city of Sonoma, there's a substantial portion of the
Right,
city of
and that's
Sonoma.
new.
Yeah, it's
That's a
new. That's
new-
now being considered not a zero risk area.
Right. No, I get it, but it is what it is.
Interestingly enough, I did make a comment in my notes about this section because it doesn't anywhere mention wildfire resiliency. And so as a general comment, I felt like there should be maybe an incorporation or reference under any sort of emergency preparedness that we specify in some way. Wildfire preparedness and resiliency in this section. And I even thought, and again, a little bit different, obviously, than what Commissioner Barnett is talking about, but interesting that he brought that piece up, is maybe having some sort of additional goal in this section, or not a goal, I'm sorry, a policy added or action about collaborating to strengthen wildfire preparedness and resiliency through things like vegetation management, defensible space, things like that.
4A is kind of a catch-all.
Is that a catch-all, you think?
Well, I also wonder, is this going to introduce a period of inspections of properties, not properties have put in applications for development, but every existing property?
That's happening
the
by
state
the insurance
essentially gonna-
companies.
Excuse
That's
me?
already happening by insurance companies.
Well, the insurance companies are kind of inspecting.
No, it's widespread in not only in California, but that's widespread, but, so the insurance companies are way ahead of the legislation on that.
Well, in the case of my personal experience, I got a home policy canceled on the house my daughter and granddaughter live in the Springs, because with the instruction that all the vegetation needed to be removed within 30 feet of the house. Well, that takes you 15 feet into the neighbor's yard. There's not coordination between the institutions of government and the business community on looking at the standards and the regulations that are in place, and where it puts the responsibility on a city, I'm not really sure. Is it the city's responsibility to inspect every property in the city, determine if it's in compliance with the state regulations on flammable plant material near a house?
We don't need to. The insurance are so far ahead of that, that's something that there's no resources for the city to do it. There's no reason for the city to do it when the insurance companies are already doing it. So I don't think that is one that we need to think about.
Except you don't have to have insurance unless you have a mortgage.
True.
You can have a house and have no insurance.
Absolutely.
So
But for the number of people who are going to not have insurance, have a house, not have a mortgage, it's this big. I think we should look at bigger issues.
I'm just raising the issue of enforcement. City is not an effective enforcer, in my opinion, of almost anything. And now we've got a new layer of regulation that seems to me to imply enforcement? Or are we just gonna turn it over to private enterprise? I mean, I understand that private enterprise is doing it for their own reasons, but if this is gonna be a rule that applies to a municipality, it's up to the municipality or they're gonna be subject to liability if they haven't done their job. It's just another case of something being thrown on a local jurisdiction with no funding, no nothing.
Any more in goal 4?
I was following up on Commissioner O'Gorman's comments. I would like to see a little bit more clarity over what we consider to be the most likely natural disasters: wildfire, flooding, earthquake.
That'll be in our safety element.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Keep rolling.
All right. Actions. Goal number 4.
The pause.
So this is where you're seeing more of the specifics on, you'll see overlap between climate resilience and climate adaptation in this section, and then our safety element itself will be more specific to our different risks. And we're also participating right now. So again, this is an example. We have general plan, and then we're working with the county right now on our joint hazard mitigation plan. All right. Hydrology and water quality. One of the main things that has come up recently in this and was raised is around our groundwater, and if there's ways to capture more groundwater and help our aquifers in our area. Any other?
One comment on 5.1.
Sure.
Could we say require development to avoid impacts to local waterways? Instead of encourage development that avoids, is it possible to say require development to avoid? I mean, I think we do that already with the setbacks and.
I don't think you can require development to avoid it because it's unfortunately unavoidable impact from development. What you can do is mitigate the impact, and standard best practices of capturing water that is flowing off of a property, off of roofs, and maintaining it on site. It's why we see ditches and ponds on new development. Is that what it does is it slows down the impact on the local waterways and wetlands by discharging that water at a slower rate, or settling it so that it can have opportunity to percolate if the soil will accept it. And so I don't think you can require them to avoid impacts because you can't. It's part of development. We displace water and we have to deal with it. And it eventually ends up in the waterway or wetlands or natural drainage. So you can
Could we say
encourage
require
best
development
practice,
to
but that's already
minimize
state
impacts?
law, you know.
Could we say require development to minimize impacts?
Well, state law is already doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we can say it.
I mean, this just sounds, I mean, just to make it sound
No,
a little
I
bit more
understand where you're trying to,
actionable.
yeah, I understand where you're trying to go with it.
On 5.7 has to do with plants and trees native to the region, climate resilient that are suitable for use in landscaping. I'm not really sure we're going to be allowed to have any landscaping anymore. But ironically, the trees species that are drought tolerant are in trees like eucalyptus. Well, How fascinating is that?
Oh, come on. Drought tolerant trees are also oak trees, and you know that. It's not just eucalyptus.
I know.
And oak trees are also fire resistant, so, you know, they're natively adapted.
And yeah, and subject to sudden
So do
sudden
not-
oak death syndrome. I mean, you know.
You're not allowed to plant eucalyptus. You're not
Anyway.
allowed to plant bamboo. I'm gonna restrict you.
What do you mean about bamboo?
Oh, bamboo is highly flammable, and it is an invasive species. No bamboo. I know you like it probably.
I think you
but
just
no
struck
bamboo.
I've got a whole
Grove.
I've
Don't
got a
tell
whole
me this.
grove of bamboo.
You've got
Somebody
property
call
lines
code
of bamboo.
enforcement.
I've got property lines of bamboo too.
It is flammable, FYI.
Moving
Well,
right along.
people are flammable if you get hot enough. I mean,
All right, now
At
we're
a
getting
certain-
punchy.
at a
Let's
certain
get through this.
Yeah.
Moving right along.
All right, actions that support goal number 5. Any comments?
Hold on. That was groundwater. Yeah, okay. What's WELO?
Water efficiency landscape ordinance?
Now we're back to the landscape.
Well, it is our water section, and
Yeah,
we do
just-
water our
Just
landscapes.
concrete everywhere, no more yards.
Do you have a drip system?
Buildings made out of metal.
Do you have a drip system?
Do I have a drip system? Yeah?
Then you're good.
They're gonna
No,
have
that's
to-
about fire,
They're gonna
not
have
about
to take
water.
that bamboo out of my cold, dead hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on.
Join us up here now. I was like, I forgot you were back there.
Water conservation, redevelopment, incorporate stormwater standards, treatment. Okay, keep scrolling. Whoa.
Anything? Moving along. No. I'm just
Visual and scenic resources, goal number 6. Any comments?
the wording in 6.1. I think we need to break into 2 independent clauses with a comma. Advocate for limited environmentally appropriate hillside development. I think it needs to say advocate for limited, comma, environmentally appropriate hillside development, just the way I read that, but. To me, that reads that you want to limit environmentally appropriate development.
So just make it limited hillside development and just take out environmentally appropriate.
Environmentally appropriate is a descriptor. The limited is a quantifier. So
Right, so I think if you broke it up with.
So we want to limit hillside development.
you want to limit hillside development, but you want it to be environmentally appropriate.
So
So
we
you
wanna
don't want to just
limit-
allow any development to happen in the hillside. You want to make sure
Just say
that you
and.
want environmentally appropriate.
Oh, I see how with this.
So it's
okay.
a, yeah.
It's both, you want both.
Comma and.
Comma
Yeah.
and.
That's where the comma came in. Commas are ands.
Okay.
Comma and.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
I gotcha. I think. Hold on. Let's go. Let's go. Where is this? There it is. I was talking to my PDF. Yep.
And are you planning on incorporating some of these comments, for example, from Donna Dombach into the language?
Yes, unless you tell me not to, as a commission.
No, okay, I mean, I thought the expansion of the PCAs in the city is a good idea.
Okay.
What's a PCA?
Priority conservation area.
Okay.
Okay. Moving, going. Whoa, sorry.
No net loss of native tree species.
Net. It's a net, not a
Net, yeah.
gross. It's a net.
Oh, man.
You just need to plant them outside of the zone.
Human beings are looking for a risk-free world. That's not going to happen.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me when. All right.
Do we currently work with the county planning department to monitor and review development proposed for hillsides visible from the city?
I do.
We do?
I do.
Well, that's good.
I receive,
Congratulations.
thanks. I receive notices. So if you mean work in that way, that happens. I receive notice of its potential development and I have an
see.
opportunity to comment.
Oh, well.
And then I have a policy to fall back on that which tells me, hey, this
Well,
is
that's the
important to us.
minimum. Utilize canopy studies to identify appropriate and underserved areas for increased canopy coverage. As long as it's not adjacent to building structures and to the appropriate tree species.
And it's not bamboo.
Yeah.
Or eucalyptus. So that's actually underway. We'll kick off our inventory and canopy study. Canopy study actually already just started. The inventory kicks off at the end of this month. And we'll both be done by the end of the year. So some of these things are actually underway already. I did listen to our joint commission meeting, started acting.
Okay, keep going.
All right, agricultural resources, goal number 7.
All right.
I don't know why we would include wine in there because I don't know that we need to be dependent on wine.
You're talking about 7.1?
Yeah.
It is
So
significant.
it currently is. It currently is, but is that something that it's kind of a market-driven issue, whether or not we promote, I mean, agriculture, yeah.
It is a distinctive quality of Sonoma.
It is.
Got to remember to use our microphones.
Okay, keep rolling.
Okay. Actions.
Looks good.
Oh,
Just
sorry.
steadfast. I saw the word farmer's market. The subject of the vineyards at the Sebastiani parcel would seem to apply to COS-7A.
Yes.
I like Donna Donback's comment about a plan for conservation easements for public throughways to establish these green belts connections across the city. I like that.
Okay, that's in regards to this goal right here.
Okay.
So goal 8 is about protection of our open space. Good.
Okay.
Here are the actions. I'm gonna look more into how transfer of development rights would actually work in a town like ours. Just kind of trying to look for examples.
Jennifer, in the city of Sonoma, how much land do we have that's currently zoned agricultural?
In this city? I think all there is the patch, which is owned by the Castagnaso family, and those vineyards that are associated with Sebastiani, and that's it.
So there's a couple of different ways to answer that question.
Oh, there might be some on the Jones property at the end of, over by Sonoma Creek.
Or what about the Leveroni property? Is that in city limits
That's not
or
in the city.
Okay.
So, a couple of different things. So there's sites that we have that are specifically land use restricted to agriculture, but we actually allow agriculture uses in our hillside, our rural residential, agriculture, and residential low. So they are, in those zones are allowed to have agricultural uses. So we can have, I mean, we brought forward that one, the horticulture, as an example in an RL zone. So that's why I said there's two answers to that question. So we have land currently being used for agricultural purposes, and I don't have, I did the number recently, I can't remember, which is different than the actual area that's feasible or allowed. But I can get that for you guys. Especially when we bring back the conversation more around any conversion of agriculture. All right, moving on.
Yeah.
All right, goal number 9, focusing on parks, recreation, and the greenways.
I have a general comment on this section.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I found it interesting that there was no reference to the plaza specifically under this section. I feel like that's kind of the jewel of the city, and I feel like there needs to be maybe, and I'm happy to think through language, but needs to be a specific goal about protecting the Plaza Park. I don't know how we want to refer to it, but I just feel like that's a very important element that should be specified under not only policy, but maybe a goal as well about preserving, protecting, enhancing the park.
Was there at some time the city council was looking to create a master plan, use plan for the plaza? Where did that ever land?
It's right now it's not as a use plan, it's more as a plaza maintenance type plan, working on the main focus right now is to get the irrigation working. And then now that we have a Parks and Rec director, there'll be more focus on that, but it is a goal for City Council. And then as soon as I can get it out the door, I'm going to do a RFP to do a cultural landscape survey for the plaza, because it's a National Historic Landmark, and so that'll help us identify what our contributing resources are of the plaza. So if there's special fountain outside of our building, so if like the fountain, the rock is the only one specifically identified as a contributing resource, but just making sure none of the plantings actually contribute to the history. So that helps us kind of identify what we can potentially modify in the future, or things that we need to protect.
I have a question on this. Can we get water fountains working now in our parks, like Depot Park and the plaza? There's one in the plaza that works.
I talked to him about it.
What was that?
I talked to the new parks director about it and about our water, when we're
Oh my
when
goodness.
we fix the irrigation and the water lines, to make sure that we are working on that aspect. And then we're also looking at to disconnect the fountains. I don't know if you know that our fountains are actually connected in the front, and that's why you have fish in the front fountain, is because the fish come from the other fountain through the pipe.
Oh,
Didn't know if you knew that.
I want to drink the water.
No, I know you're talking about the water fountains
Yeah.
that they're drinking, but
Yeah.
all the water lines that support all of these facilities need work. So that's why we don't have a second fountain, is because we don't have a water line yet for a second fountain near the
Are
bathrooms.
you talking about drinking fountains?
Drinking fountains. I'm talking about drinking. I'm talking about two different things. I'm
But
talking
there,
about the
there are
fountain.
fountains all over the place. They just don't work. But you're saying they're connected with the fountain?
No,
with
the fountain, the ponds. Let's go with ponds.
You're not drinking fish.
Okay, no, I'm talking about drinking fountains.
I know you're talking about drinking fountains. I'm saying when we deal with all of that, we're dealing with the water lines for the drinking fountains to service the plants, the irrigation, to service our pond fountain.
Okay, so they shut them off during COVID.
The one's back on. The one by the playground is on.
That's the only one. Depot
Correct.
Park doesn't have any, and the rest of the plaza doesn't
Correct.
have any. But they just shut them down for COVID, and then they never restarted them.
In the depot?
Uh-huh.
I didn't think there was a fountain there at all.
Yeah, right in front of the restroom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We'll work
Hope
on
there's
that.
no fish in it.
There's no fish in that one. I was literally talking about the rock fountain
Yeah.
and the pond
So,
are
but
connected.
literally, like 3 days a week, I try and drink water out of it.
Why do you keep trying?
Well, I would like to drink water out of it. I do carry I have to leave water bottles out there.
Keep rolling there, Jennifer.
Okay. Oops. Is that good?
By the way, there's a project like Montaldo. Is that going to end up paying a Quimby fee?
Did.
Because 50 units is a lot
Oh,
of
no,
units.
I'm sorry. Montaldo, no. Hummingbird did.
what-
Quimby is directly associated with subdivision projects, so it has to have
And
a
so they're not going to generate any fees towards parks or recreation.
That is correct.
That seems to be a defect in our system. Because 50 units are a lot of units. If you put in a 50-unit housing development in the past in Sonoma, you had to put in a park up where you live or
So
lived.
they have their own community space.
I understand that, but
Sorry, it's in the law that the definition of who has to pay, the subdivision definition.
Correct. It's in the Subdivision Map Act.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's where it stems from, is the state law.
So that is associated with the subdivision. What you're talking about is so when you did the neighborhoods in the past, that's when all those little
parks.
neighborhood parks went in, is because they were single-family neighborhoods. And so apartment complexes are different, and then, so that's where when we do our development code update, when we're talking about open space and how we want open space to be programmed or not, like what amenities and things, we can put more specificity into our development code, because those can be actual objective standards that we install. As far as for the public itself to use, that's a different thing. So if you saw before, there was a goal of 5 acres per 1,000 people, which we meet. We actually, so remember when we had that discussion before, we meet and or exceed for a city. Now, are there certain neighborhoods or areas of town that maybe not? Possibly. But we'll have a whole lovely, we won't as planning commission, but the city will be having a conversation around our fees and impact fees and things like that, what we can and cannot charge later this year. Come on, wrong one. All right, actions.
I'll just maintain that maybe under 9F, we add a bullet specific to the plaza.
Okay.
I haven't really worked through language, but just something about, developing and implementing a long-term, maybe roadmap to sustain and enhance the Sonoma Plaza.
Yeah, 9E, I support that, and 9E speaks to the point I made about Montaldo, which, we don't have an impact fee that applies apparently to that kind of project.
No, it's in I have lots of these documents that I'll be merging. In another document, the periodically review and update as necessary. We don't have one, so I'm not reviewing and updating as necessary. So this will be modified once I actually know more about the fees. Okay.
In that regard, is the city planning to do a nexus study to develop the fees?
That's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
All right, that concludes conservation. I still have one more element. It is 8:47.
Director Gates.
I know, you're losing it.
Not going to happen.
My hunger is
What-
exceeding my focus.
What would be the implications of not hearing that element at this evening's meeting and continuing that to a date certain?
How
Is it as long as what we just
long?
Depends.
endured?
Circulation is 19.
Is it?
It's
pretty
important.
much the same, yeah.
It's important.
It is a good size one. Okay, we don't need to continue to a date certain because this isn't a public hearing. So our next meeting is October 16th. Thank you. Is October 16th. So I can bring it back then. I'll just be ready for your comments to be added to everybody else's.
You don't want a special meeting?
I honestly do not have time to have a special meeting between now and October 16th. I've got 2 conferences.
Neither do I.
Yeah, Natalie knows my calendar very well.
We know. Okay.
Is there anticipated a big item on the October agenda?
No? No, there shouldn't be anything big. Maybe small. We're probably gonna have our first administrative design review within the month, so that's cool. We'll practice that. And you're welcome.
You're welcome. Okay, so I actually need to open public comment for that agenda item, and seeing no commentators, I will close public comment. Yeah, they've been fairly quiet this whole hearing. So with that, we will close items for discussion, and we will open director comments and announcements.
The ad hoc will continue working as the new elements get released, but in the meantime, ad hoc is also for the code amendments, and so we'll be meeting very soon to go over those and to start thinking about it. And so if October is a light meeting, it may be a joint thing where we're going to bring you utilities, circulation, and some of the questions that we have for you around the code before taking any big steps forward. And the 22nd, so next Monday, I canceled the general plan task force meeting until we have more elements to review. And I'm trying to think if anything. Last night at City Council, they decided not to move forward with a second cannabis or any more cannabis businesses at this time, and it'll be revisited at every goal cycle. And so if the City Council then sets a goal for that, then we would readdress it at that time. And in October, you will receive a number of housing ordinances that I need to get done. So that is really all I've got on the docket coming up, and I think that's it that I have.
Thank you. Any reports or comments from the commission? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.
May I ask a question off the record?
Yeah, let's go off the record. Off the record.
Close the meeting.